Hello, my name is Grenville and welcome to Faery Wood. Faery Wood is here to assist you in the awakening process and to nurture your spiritual growth. This video is about the awakening and the title of this episode is What Pandemic? I think that from here forward that I shall refer to this as the P word. Before we get started, there is some advice I'd like to share. Please don't take my word for what we show you. You're being encouraged to step into your power and do your own research. The more you learn, the less frightened you become. The spiritual term for stepping into your power is discernment, which is a huge subject in itself and one we shall cover in another video. Always remember this: question everything. Our next bit of advice is to please be sure that your research and discernment does not come from the TV, because that's part of the problem. The media uses misdirection just like a magic show. Google and some other media platforms are also part of the problem. Choose a search engine like yippee.com or duckduckgo.com to do your research. The reason for this will be revealed in other videos. Because this is an awakening video, there are certain words and terms that I do my best to avoid, just so that our channel does not get taken down. With the awakening videos, we shall endeavour to do our best not to tell you what to think, but instead show you some of the facts that we've found that goes against the narrative and invite your curiosity to follow it down the rabbit hole. We wish to bring you hope in the form of some clarity, a little bit of peace of mind, and walk you through this very exciting time of transition from 3D into 5D. Some of you already realise that something is going on because the information shared does not make sense to you. That's because most of it doesn't. We're here to encourage you to trust your spidey senses, to do your own digging and discover the reasons why for yourself. Question everything. We're not questioning the fact that there's a virus. This video is aimed at questioning the narrative that's being pushed by both the media and the government. As long as they have us living in fear, we cannot stand in our spiritual or divine power. We're easier to control and manipulate. How many churches are open is normal? I started off my research with finding out the population of New Brunswick. I went to canadapopulation.ca and it says that we have a population of 772,238 people. As of the 1st of March 2021, we had 27 people who have allegedly died of the P word in the last 12-month period. I say allegedly because even though they may have had other causes, it still gets notched up to the P word. Now, I'm not the best at doing maths, so I went into calculator.net and filled in the figures to work out the percentages. The 27 deaths is the percentage of the New Brunswick population of 772,238. It calculates that the 27 deaths are 0.0034% of our population of 772,238. Let me understand this properly. There is just a 0.003% likelihood of me dying of this, the P word? So, by calculations that I can do myself, that means there is a 99.997% survival rate. Is that what a P word really looks like? Let's take a look then and see what Wikipedia says about what a P word is. A P word is an epidemic of an infectious disease that is spread across a large region or worldwide, affecting a substantial number of people. A widespread endemic disease with a stable number of infected people is not a P word. Widespread endemic diseases with a stable number of infected people, such as recurrences of seasonal influenza, are generally excluded as they occur simultaneously in large regions of the globe rather than being spread worldwide. The most fatal P word in recorded history was the Black Death, also known as the plague. which killed an estimated 75 to 200 million people in the 14th century. The term was not used yet, but was for later P-words, including the 1918 influenza P-word, also known as the Spanish flu. So let's go down this rabbit hole a little further. Here's what Wikipedia says about the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu, also known as the 1918 influenza P-word, it infected 500 million people, about a third of the world's population at that time. The death toll is typically estimated to have been somewhere between 20 million and 50 million, although estimates range from a conservative 17 million to a possible high of 100 million people, making it one of the deadliest P-words in human history. Who's curious to find out what the population was at that time? Let's take a look. Estimates suggest that the world population in 1918 was 1.8 billion. Based on this, the low estimate of 17.4 million deaths by Spreeuwenberg in 2018 implies that the Spanish flu killed almost 1% of the world population. For the sake of easy maths, let's just call it 1%, because they did say that it was very conservative. They told us that they estimated it to be somewhere between 20 to 50 million all the way up to 100 million. So if 17 million is approximately 1%, then 50 million means approximately 3%. 100 million would be 6% of the world population. I'm not going to go down that road. Let's choose the middle option, the 3%, and compare that with our New Brunswick population. Here's good old calculator.net again. What's 3% of the 772,238 population of New Brunswick? Wow, we'd have been looking at a death count of 23,167 New Brunswickers. How many are we up to right now? 27? Now, don't get me wrong. These deaths are still very sad, but nevertheless, dying is still a fact of life because none of us is going to live forever. But that's 1,782 times more than the 27 that we have today. Let's compare the same with a very conservative estimate of just the 17 million that were just 1%. Let's go back to calculator.net and see what 1% of the 772,238 New Brunswick population is. If the equivalent of just the conservative estimate of 1% of New Brunswick died, that would mean we'd have looked at a mortality total of 7,722 people. How many are we at? 27. That would be 286 times more than we see today. My question is, what part of 27 makes this a P-word? Of those 27, how many of those were elderly and in care homes? It's my belief that they were the largest group, so if someone could find that out for me, I'd be most obliged. The false narrative is the same whether we calculate the figures for Canada or the whole world. The total deaths in 2020 were comparable with any other year, so what's going on? Let's go to worldometers.info and look at the population of Canada in 2020. That does not appear to be changing, and I still do not see anything that indicates that we have a P-word. Let's go to the Worldometers info again and take a look at the world population totals. I'm not seeing anything there either. Does any of this make sense when compared to the story that we've been fed by the government and media? Not to me it doesn't. Where are they heading with this? Have you noticed that there's very little talk of the yellow phase anymore? The narrative now is that we'll not reopen until 70% of the population is vaccinated, even though the vaccine is not a vaccine by definition. It's experimental and has had very little testing. PCR testing is still being used to diagnose the P-word, even though the founder of the PCR test said it's not a diagnostic tool. The World Health Organization has reduced the PCR cycles from 45 down to 20 to 25 and instantaneously reduced 70% of the false positives, which the WHO said occurs at the higher threshold. Meanwhile, here in Canada, We soldier on at the 45 cycles and it's 40 in New Brunswick in order to keep the fake narrative going. It floors me that Big Pharma, by law, has been made exempt from any of the lawsuits of the side effects or damage it can cause. Trudeau's trampled the Charter of Rights and Freedoms through the Emergency Act over a flu that has a 99.5% recovery rate. Here in New Brunswick, Premier Higgs and his cabinet of spineless ass lickers go along with his agenda because they think that they're untouchable as politicians. Well, here's a reality check for them. Because this is still an experimental vaccine that's being tested on the general public, they may not be as exempt from crimes against humanity laid out in the Nuremberg Code as they may like to think. But that's another video for another day. The Awakening is about the downfall of the corruption, mind control and crimes against humanity that is being played out on the political stage. It's a fragile system being held together by blackmail. These are all things that have been designed to manipulate and suppress our vibration. The more that you learn, the less frightened you will be. Here's another thought. It's not the P word which is destroying us, it's the lockdown. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, we were told, but now it's almost a year, and yet we still don't question it. The lockdown has now become its own entity. It has legs of its own, and we've given our power away to the TV, media, and the politicians. We seek the comfort that the government and media will look after us without realising that it was they who created the fear in the first place. It reminds me of the sheep who spend their whole life fearing the wolf only to be eaten by the shepherd. Truth seekers who have questioned the narrative and pushed back against the unlawful rules are now the new enemy, not the virus. Look at how we've been turned against each other. We've allowed ourselves to be divided by race, colour, gender or sexual orientation. Look at the hate aimed at Donald Trump. Hate causes our vibration to plummet, as does fear. Politeness, courtesy, friendship, harmony, community and norms have been destroyed. We've sat back and passively allowed our humanity and vibration to be destroyed, not by the virus, but by the lockdowns and their unsubstantiated science and exaggerated analytics. The virus is all but gone, but so too is the compassion, the love for each other, and divided we shall fall. Think about this. The virus will never completely disappear. The flu virus still comes back every year, and it still kills thousands, even though there is a vaccine. But that's the circle of life. The virus was a cover story for the tyranny and blackmail. It's still going to get worse for those who don't see it for what it really is. Their fear will never be pacified because they seek comfort from the system, and that system of corruption is about to collapse. Blackmail, human trafficking, paedophilia, crimes against humanity, satanic worshipping is about to be exposed in all levels of society, including the places that we trusted such as the government, courts, lawmakers, healthcare, financial institutions, United Nations, Vatican, Royal Family, Red Cross, and so many other humanitarian charities that we donated to with love. It is through all of this being exposed in the days and weeks ahead that we shall awaken to what has been going on and reclaim our spiritual power. God will expose it all, and a whole new world is about to be ushered in. Victory is not in the future, it is now. The day that you start thinking for yourself will be the greatest day of your life. These times are about to be revealed as the greatest story ever told. What footprint will you leave for your grandchildren in the sands of history? I hope you enjoyed this video. Please help support us with a like, share or subscription because we're not monetized here at Faery Wood. You can find us at faerywood.ca. If you have some great ideas that you'd like us to cover for future videos or would like to join our team as we venture forward into 5D, please drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you on the next one, and remember, the sun always comes out after the rain, so make way because the light must shine.